Greetings, true believers, and welcome to another strange episode of History of the Marvel Universe. This channel is brought to you in part by Patreon supporters. If you would like to help decide what topics get covered on the channel and get your name in the special thanks at the end of each episode, you can sign up for as little as $1 per month over at patreon.com/MaryMarvelite. The link is in the description below. Today's tale begins in the early 20th century with a Transylvanian nobleman named Nikolai. Before the First World War, under the Austro-Hungarian Empire, he was named the first Baron of Mordo. He was also a practitioner of the mystic arts, tutored by the Romani witch queen Miarca. She was reportedly the daughter of the ancient sorcerer Cagliastro, and had in her possession a book containing his mystic knowledge. After the end of World War I and the dissolution of the Empire, Nikolai was left embittered by the shifting political climate and the proliferation of modern technology. And so he increased his devotion to black magic with the goal of returning his homeland to its past glory. A similar path was also followed by a German Viscount named Heinrich Krauler. He planned to increase his own power with a spell of transference, so that all the mystical knowledge attained by the spell's target would become his as well. However, such magic could only be cast on a member of his own bloodline, and so Viscount Krauler ordered his daughter Sarah to marry Baron Nikolai and produce for him a grandson. Although her heart was devoid of love, she obeyed her father, and in 1921, in a castle overlooking the Transylvanian town of Varfmandra, Sarah Krauler gave birth to Nikolai Mordo's first and only son. Christened Karl Amadeus Mordo, this boy grew up ignored as his mother saw him only as a means to an end, and his father rarely noticed him at all. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to the Kraulers, Nikolai's teacher, Miarca, was also his mistress, and she bore him an illegitimate daughter named Lilia Murgo. Miarca's ultimate fate is unknown, but Nikolai continued to practice the dark arts and increase his powers. His plans to restore his homeland came closer to fruition, but this conflicted with the Viscount's goals of German supremacy. And so Krauler commanded his daughter once again, this time to strike down Nikolai Mordo and end his life. After that, she took her son and left Transylvania, returning to Krauler Castle in Bavaria. There, Karl Mordo began his own studies in the mystic arts under the tutelage of his grandfather. Then one day, Mordo overheard his mother and grandfather talking and learned that they had killed his father. Karl swore that he would have his revenge and fulfill what he believed to be his father's dream by returning the world to a medieval state and ruling as the second Baron Mordo. Meanwhile, Krauler met another young man with an interest in the occult, the Austrian-born Adolf Hitler. For approximately 10 years, Krauler and his cabal of dark mystics fostered Hitler's rise to power, providing him with financial support. In 1939, as the Second World War began, the 18-year-old Mordo had learned everything his grandfather had to teach him. Krauler then sent Mordo on a quest to Tibet to learn from Earth's sorcerer supreme, Yao the Ancient One, in the city of Kamartaj. Yao could sense in Mordo the potential for great power as well as great evil, and agreed to train him so that he could watch over and guide him. The Ancient One also foresaw that his true successor was Stephen Vincent Strange, who was only a child at the time. Mordo also discovered this and, out of jealousy, implanted within the boy a psychic construct, which caused him to be tormented by demons that only he could see. Initially, Stephen was protected by the Ancient One, who drove away the terrors. Mordo feigned repentance, and the Ancient One forgave his transgressions. However, the construct he'd implanted continued to do its work, opening Stephen's psyche to horrors beyond the edge of reality, while blocking his conscious mind from actively remembering them. After this, Mordo sought further power and made contact with the dread Dormammu, a sorceress entity from the Dark Dimension who had battled the Ancient One several hundred years prior. But because of the transference spell, everything Mordo learned was also learned by Viscount Crowler. In 1943, Crowler allied himself with a British mage named Sir Anthony Baskerville and secretly traveled to his castle in Cornwall with a squadron of Nazi troops. There, the two mages allied themselves with Dormammu in exchange for even more knowledge and power. They even succeeded in capturing a time-displaced Doctor Strange and his apprentice Clea, who had traveled there from decades in the future. Crowler and Baskerville plotted to sacrifice Clea and use the fear and hatred generated by German attacks on the United Kingdom to materialize Dormammu on Earth. It should be noted that the Dormammu that Crowler and Baskerville communed with was also from the future and was speaking to them from his own time period. Because time travel was involved, the full details of these events are somewhat complicated, but here's the abridged version. A total of 4 people traveled from the future to 1943. Doctor Strange, Clea, Baron Mordo, and a woman named Morgana Blessing. Unlike the others, Morgana was not a practitioner of the mystic arts, but she did possess some innate magical abilities. Future Dormammu transformed future Mordo into mystical energy and commanded Baskerville to find a host for him to possess. Meanwhile, Baskerville Castle was attacked by the legendary war hero Nick Fury and his Howling Commandos. During the assault, Anthony Baskerville placed the spirit of future Mordo into the body of Morgana Blessing, while future Dormammu possessed Crowler and tried to complete the ritual. However, Morgana was able to seize back control of her body and use future Mordo's power to help Doctor Strange force Dormammu from Crowler's form and banish him once again. The travelers from the future then returned to their own time, and the once powerful Viscount Crowler was left broken both physically and mentally. Now, if that was a little hard to follow, don't worry, the finer details are not overly important. The relevant thing to today's story is that Viscount Crowler was left invalid by the ordeal, a fact that young Mordo learned by spying on his grandfather as he returned to Germany. Seizing the opportunity to avenge his father, Baron Mordo killed his mother and grandfather, sacrificing both of them to the Dormammu of his own time. With that, the Ancient One realized that Mordo was beyond redemption, but feared that he may be unable to defeat him on his own. And so he continued to watch and wait, doing his best to keep Mordo's ambitions in check for another 20 years. Meanwhile, young Stephen Strange grew up, completed medical school, and became a neurosurgeon of great renown before he was 30 years old. However, he was also vain, arrogant, and greedy, caring more about money than helping people. Mordo has claimed that this attitude was a result of the psychic construct that he'd implanted in Stephen's mind as a child. With his subconscious tormented by demonic entities, Stephen Strange numbed the pain with alcohol and developed a detached materialistic persona to keep others from getting too close. Of course, Strange's life irrevocably changed in 1963 when a car accident badly damaged the nerves in his hands, ending his career as a surgeon. Mordo has also claimed that the crash wasn't truly an accident, but that Stephen had intentionally turned into a tree in an attempt to end his own life, the ultimate goal of Mordo's psychic construct. Varying accounts of this event give contradictory details, but the end result is the same. Stephen's search for a way to heal his hands eventually brought him to Camartage, where he met the Ancient One and Baron Karl Mordo. In a final effort to prevent Strange from fulfilling his destiny, Mordo covertly launched a mystical attack on the Ancient One. Strange witnessed this, but Mordo cast an invisible spell that would silence him if he tried to warn the old mystic of Mordo's betrayal. And ironically, all of Mordo's efforts inadvertently caused the very thing he longed to prevent. In order to combat Mordo and his evil, Dr. Strange volunteered to become the Ancient One's pupil. Of course, the Ancient One then revealed that he was well aware of Mordo's treachery and freed Strange from his spell. And so Dr. Stephen Strange became a master of the mystic arts, destined to one day become the new Sorcerer Supreme. For years, Mordo remained under the Ancient One's watchful eye, never aging while in the enchanted city of Camartage. But eventually, after losing a duel with Strange, Mordo departed to seek other avenues of power. He returned to Transylvania and repelled the vampire lord Count Dracula from his home village of Verfmandra. However, this was only so he could sacrifice many of its residents in dark rituals to increase his own strength. Mordo also learned of the Book of Cagliastro, which collected the mystic knowledge of the ancient sorcerer, including information transcribed from the Darkhold. The book also contained writings from Sissinedge, a sorcerer from the 31st century who impersonated Cagliastro in the 1780s, and thus included methods of time travel. Cagliastro entrusted the book to his loyal Romani followers, and thus it was given to Miarca, Cagliastro's rumored daughter, and Nikolai Mordo's mistress. Miarca eventually passed the book on to her daughter, Lilia Murgo, Karl Mordo's half-sister. She in turn passed it on to her own daughter and the latest witch queen, Lilia Calderu. Tracking down Miarca's tribe, Baron Mordo found and seduced his own niece, who was unaware of their relation. Mordo earned Lilia's trust until he found an opportunity to seize the Book of Cagliastro and escape. He attacked his lover and left her for dead, but unbeknownst to Mordo, Lilia Calderu survived and was pregnant. With the Book of Cagliastro, Mordo gained enough power to challenge the Ancient One, but lacked the patience to fully master the tome's spells first. This, of course, put him into conflict with Dr. Strange, who soon became his arch-nemesis. Their battles persisted into the modern age, and Mordo would often ally himself with the dread Dormammu. The Baron also recruited several powerful minions of his own, including Demonicus, Adria, and Caecilius. Sir Anthony Baskerville, who allied himself with Viscount Crowler during World War II, also loyally served Baron Mordo for years. The Ancient One did eventually meet the end of his mortal life, but that was not because of Mordo, but rather a consequence of a battle with Shuma Gorath. After that, Strange wished to reconcile with Mordo and finally put their feud to an end. His search for his old rival brought him to Transylvania, where he met Lilia Calderu. Lilia used her own spells to manipulate Strange, using him to enter Mordo's castle and retake the Book of Cagliastro. However, the two were attacked by a monstrous gargoyle the Baron had enslaved, and Lilia Calderu was killed. Furthermore, Mordo had finally deciphered the book's time-traveling spells and plotted to alter history for his own ends. Strange pursued Mordo, and the two landed in the 18th century, where Sissinedge, the aforementioned sorcerer from the 31st century, was impersonating Cagliastro. The two continued to follow Sissinedge backwards through time, as he wished to reach the beginning of the universe and become God. Mordo wanted to gain this new god's favor, but when Sissinedge achieved his apotheosis, he realized that time must play out as it already had, and so Strange and Mordo were returned to their own unaltered timeline. However, witnessing the birth of the universe had driven Mordo mad, and Dr. Strange took him into his care. The Baron eventually recovered and engaged in several more schemes. Notable for today's video, he abducted Strange's allies, Morgana and Clea, and attempted to escape into the past once again. This time, Dormammu directed him to 1943, where he was again pursued by Doctor Strange, and the events mentioned earlier in the video transpired. After returning to the present, Baron Mordo continued to fight with Doctor Strange, but eventually found his power weakening. Riddled with cancer, he returned to the Ancient One's monastery to live out his remaining days with the monks who resided there. But not long after, Strange attacked Mordo when he learned how he had tormented and manipulated him early in his life. Finding himself now unable to forgive Mordo for all his evil acts, Strange was asked to leave the monk's temple. Meanwhile, another foe plotted against Doctor Strange, the long-forgotten daughter of Karl Mordo and Lilia Calderu, Astrid Mordo. In the years since her birth, Astrid had become a formidable sorceress in her own right, and sought to succeed where her father had failed. To this end, she mystically transferred her father's cancer into Doctor Strange. However, it seems that this time, Mordo was sincere in his repentance, and voluntarily took the cancer back. Strange then battled Astrid Mordo until the villainous sorceress held two of his allies hostage, one of whom was a little girl. Strange surrendered, but Astrid was then stabbed from behind by her father, who banished her into an interdimensional exile. Shortly after that, Baron Karl Amadeus Mordo succumbed to his cancer and peacefully passed away. At least until Doctor Strange tampered with the time stream to save Spider-Man and accidentally resurrected him. But that's all I've got for you this week. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, share the video, and subscribe for more marvelous content. Be sure to leave a comment letting me know what Marvel hero or villain you want to hear about next, and as always, the issues referenced in this video are listed in the description below if you would like to read them for yourself, as well as links to other places you can find me, including my Patreon page, where for only $1 a month you can get your name in these special thanks here. So until next time, true believers, Excelsior!